Using my powers to assess honesty is another matter. Even if I sensed Magneto's intentions were sincere, that's today, this hour, this minute.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining me today to talk about XMen 97.
My pleasure.
Yes, I cannot wait. You have done so many incredible projects over the course of your career. I'm personally a huge fan of Dragon Age Inquisition and, of course, Bastila Shan.
Yes.
And now, of course, you're in XMen 97. You're our Jean Grey. What has it been like for you to get to be part of all of these projects that are so, like, their fan bases are so huge and so passionate about the characters that you bring to life?
It's like an ongoing awesome dream. Like I'm good with not waking up from this one. This is great. I really feel incredibly lucky, and even more so because, I mean, you probably know this because you like this content. The voice acting world is full of just incredible talent and wonderful people too. They're wonderful people, and they're the most brilliant actors. I get so honestly, I get frustrated when I watch the on-camera world come in and take on an IP that was first created through animation or games and just ditch all the talent that was in that pool. Like, it is the most incredible group of, first of all, phenomenally talented. Second of all, so hilariously fun to work with. And third, just really good humans who are smart and professional. Like, they get it done. It's just, it's anyway. So to be in this spot among that group of people, I feel extra lucky. Yeah.
I always feel like a broken record because I talk about how animation and video games have brought some of the longest lasting storylines to my life, the ones that I think about the most. Like, I love live action, but there's so much story and heart in the stories that can be told through voices. And
Yes.
it's a remarkable thing.
It is. That just reminds me of something. Do you know Dave Hayter?
Yes.
He's one of my dearest, oldest friends. Like, we came up together, if you will, in the industry. And I remember I took him a book. God, I can't remember the author. It was an incredible animation illustrator, and I cannot believe I've forgotten his name. Anyway, I took Dave a book of his art for his birthday one year, just going over to the house. And he picked it up and he looked at it and he said, "This is our modern mythology. This is the mythology of our times. This is how we tell our stories." And I was like, oh my God, see, that's why you're a writer too, because you're brilliant.
Oh, I love that. That's just a good way of putting it. That's great.
Yeah.
So I'm curious for you, what was your relationship like with X-Men before you became our Jean Grey?
I have been really lucky to occupy this universe from a few angles. I have been Jean Grey in a few things. I even stepped into Rogue a couple of times. And, I love this universe so much. It really struck me too at the premiere of X-Men 97, sitting there watching, they played the first 3 episodes in sequence. And so I really got to take it in because I rarely have that much time to sit and watch anything. And just the depth of these stories and how they touch our modern lives so perfectly. It's such a timeless universe. It's such a timeless universe. And I had the incredible fortune to spend a bit of time with Stan Lee because I started working on the Spider-Man 90s show way back then before this all really hit again. And Stan had time to come and hang out, not all the time, but he would pop in regularly, and we went to his house for one of the first screenings. And so to be in his world and part of his storytelling, I just feel insanely fortunate.
And that brings me to my next question so perfectly, which is, you have played Jean before. Where do you find the differences between the portrayals of Jean that you've brought to the screen?
The differences come from the team every single time. Because the way I operate is my perception of the story, my perception of what, quote unquote, should be done and the way it should be done is irrelevant, honestly. I'm to bring my toolbox, I'm to bring my emotional library, I'm to bring my intelligence and my work ethic, and let's get to it. And what's primary is this team's vision. And so each of those teams has a unique vision. This team, for example, many of them grew up watching the show. So it's a really special resonance for them. It was so cool. We had a little, just a quiet Zoom gathering with a bunch of us after the finale of season 1. And just to listen to them talk about, growing up with the show and then now working on the show and bringing it back to life was just like, wow, it was mind blowing. Some of the original, we got some original writers on this team. It's like, what? What? Are you kidding me? Because see, to me, this sounds cheesy in this context, but it's true from my brain. Writers make the world go round. Without you guys, we literally have nothing to do. You are the original channels of the stories that help humanity make sense of itself. You're the ones who should be the celebrities, honestly. It's true. Hello. It's logical. We are the art in the paint jar. We are the paint in the jar. We are the ink in the pen. And there's so much to that pen that makes it happen. We're just the part you can see or hear.
And you're in this really unique position in X-Men 97 as well, because you get to play two different versions of essentially the same character. What was it like getting to play with the extremes and that duality between who Jean is and who Maddie are? Because they are essentially the same person, but they've had very different lived experiences.
Yeah. When I add Goblin Queen in there, the word that comes to mind is delicious. It's delicious. I loved it. And part of what made it so wonderful, again, was the clarity of the team on who these distinct iterations of this person are. And what made it really a fun experience and allowed me to truly play is our voice director, Meredith Lane. She's there to hold the fences. So if I go too far and cross the line from Jean to Madeline, or just even too far as Goblin Queen, I can go as far as I want and play as hard as I want in each of those personalities because I trust that she is there and she will speak up clearly and quickly if I step outside the lines. So I can really find those lines. I can push as far as I want to and find those lines because I trust that she's got it. She's got me. She's got the team in one ear and then me there on the other side of the glass and is driving that car so expertly.
That makes me think about, I've talked to both Matthew and Lenore, and they talked a little bit about how things kind of changed sometimes within the recording process. What was on the page kind of evolved and changed over the process of like a year and a half or so. And I was curious, were there any moments like that for Jean or Maddie where the thing that was originally written kind of began to evolve as you started to, perform it and they started to see the tweaks and the changes? Because I'm really fascinated by that process and how there's like a whole world that evolves during the recording process.
The process was fascinating because originally when we set sail, I had Catherine's wonderful performance to refer to as the original and the original tone. So we stayed super true to that vibe. And we did an entire, I think, many episodes in that vibe. and it's a stretch because I don't think people always key into the fact that acting evolves tremendously. I would say every 2 to 5 years, honestly, because people's nose for emotional and psychological truth and authenticity gets finer tuned every moment. We're consuming so much content of human behavior or involving human behavior that we can smell, inauthenticity coming and going. And in the 90s, acting's been losing that presentational quality decade, and we were still like, I'm in a show now. So we did it first in this place. And they came back going, yeah, and as an actor, yes, I have my opinions about those things, but I'm always putting the team's opinion first. So my opinion had no business there. I will say, absolutely thrilled when they came back and wanted to modernize the acting and keep the feel, but modernize the acting. I was like, woohoo! Yes! Awesome! Let's do this.
And I love it because I feel like a lot of fans picked up on that as well and like really appreciated that it felt modernized and there were these little tweaks to what we loved as kids in the 90s to what we're getting to enjoy now with 97.
As you say that, it's occurring to me that so many people on the team grew up with the show and were fans in that respect. So when they created something, I think they created something they would have loved. They're not talking down to anybody. They're not, quote unquote, marketing to anyone. They're creating something beautiful that they love in a way that they love. And I think that's why every time I look at art or entertainment, that's the stuff that works, not what rocked last year's box office or, rocked the ratings here. It's like, what do you want? What would you enjoy? Go do that because you know what? You're not the only one.
And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things I really liked about X-Men 97 is because it so perfectly captured the things that like I've always loved about X-Men, which is it's always felt like a soap opera. It was a soap opera in the 90s, it's a soap opera in the comics. I think it's always going to take on that style. And there were things that I really loved about 97. You know, you had the love triangles, which are always so messy and fun. You have this thing that's happening over here with like the rogue Magneto Remy thing, and then you have the Scott, the Jean, the Logan, the Maddie. I'm really curious to be like, as an actor, getting to play with those messy dynamics with characters and like the love triangles. Like, how much fun was that to kind of get to explore that?
It is the funnest thing ever. I will have moments like, you know, in our industry, work is super busy for a while, then it's less busy, then it's super busy and it's less busy. And sometimes in the less busy periods, if I find myself getting tense over something that does not require me to get tense, I'll often check myself and go, you know what? I need some scene work. I need to get this drama out where it's productive. It's the funnest. I mean, Goblin Queen and Madeline and that the intensity of all that is so much fun. And then on the other end, look at the world we live in right now. It is a massive, sometimes terrifying soap opera that we don't have much influence over in some spaces, we think. I will say I don't believe that. I believe we have enormous influence. We just have to remember who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely remember, please say that I believe, because I don't want, I'm not disempowering people. We have enormous influence, but we forget, you know? And also, we all go through those times of intense difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the scenes, spoiler alert, with Nathan, I can't even talk about it without crying. You know, that, because I'm a mom, you know, and just the thought of having to give up your child, like, is devastating. But there's such an honor in representing that, even something that's sort of soapy, you know, a little, you know, can be kind of over the top. Someone has gone through that somewhere, and someone needs that catharsis. Somebody needs to be seen. There is a piece, can't talk about this without crying, in the last episode that was taken directly from an experience I had when my father was dying. And they put it in the show. And when I heard it in the finale, I literally just dropped and just sobbed. It was so beautifully put. It was so beautifully done. It's the line is, "These are yours now." And that was straight from when my father passed away. And I was like, you heard that story, you put it in this show. Oh dang it,
that's got me crying too.
Yeah, but there's somebody out there who's going through something so crazy, so over the top, or so hidden and so unseen, and they need to be seen and they need to see themselves. Like, there's so much wonderful attention given to representation right now. I saw on a post the other day. I was probably about an 8-year-old kid in a wheelchair looking up in a store, seeing a sign in a clothing display of a kid in a wheelchair. Like, representation matters. Like, he exists, and people of color seeing themselves, and women and our non-binary community seeing themselves represented in culture. Mm-hmm. And I think emotional representation in a way that's respectable and relatable, I think matters too. Yeah.
And that's X-Men. I mean, it's always spoken to the people who have the voices, and like they need that power to use those voices for like the greater good. And that's what makes X-Men such this like beautiful story. I love that. As much as I love like the messy relationships and the love triangles and all of that, I really love Jean's friendship with Storm. I think that is ultimately like one of the most beautiful parts of their story. Can you talk a little bit about like the importance of that relationship and getting to explore that more in X-Men 97?
It's so huge. You know, I'm so thrilled. I've talked about this, you know, several times, that shows like, you know, Ted Lasso, like Healing Rebecca and Ted Lasso, and, you know, women we're seeing everywhere in entertainment. My God, look at, what did I see the other day online? I love Colbert. It was Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda, I love
those two
so
are like
much.
blazing the way. You know, like, women having each other's backs is the actual truth of things, and to see it represented in X-Men 97. You know, for all the over the topness that the show can be sometimes, those moments with Storm and Jean are those quiet moments of, God, am I crazy? No, honey, you're not crazy. I get it, and just like we do with each other and for each other. And I live for the day when Rogue comes in with, like, we all sit around together. We're like, all right, what are we going to do with these people? How are we going to get this back together? Like, I love that because Lenore is such, both Allison and Lenore are just such extraordinary people, and Holly, and we actually, we have a little behind the scenes group text thread where we're always like, hey, sharing stuff with each other. Yeah.
I love that. You need that. I mean, that's a very important part of this entire creative process, and having that, family. I always say that sets and crews and casts become family. And I think that's an important part of this industry.
Yeah. And it's so nuts because so much of so-called news reporting focuses on division and fighting. And the truth is, I can count so many more times a day when somebody's got my back or somebody else's back, or we're holding each other up, because that's how we actually float down the river. Mm-hmm. That thing, I just want to punch something. People are like, survival of the fittest. And I'm like, really? Because I have a girlfriend who is was an anthropology major, and she's actually read that text a couple of times. And she said that phrase is in there about a half a dozen times. And the phrase community and cooperation is in there over 200 times. Mm-hmm. That's how we actually make it, and I love that Storm and Jean's friendship is a quiet, powerful testament to that.
I always say to that statement, when it rains and we're all in the boat, the water raises all of us together.
Oh, so good.
Yes. So I know season 2 has already been reported. That's out there. We all know. You know what's coming. So I know you can't say much, but I'm curious, like, what can you tease about where things are headed for Jean? Obviously, they're stuck in 3960. That's going to pose a big challenge. There's a lot of stuff that was teased at the end of season 1.
All I can say is stay tuned and buckle up.
Oh. I'm really curious to see how things play out, because like Jean and Scott were in a little bit of a difficult situation with their relationship towards the end of the season. So I'm very excited to see where that goes.
Well, this is marriage, right?
Exactly. And that plays so perfectly into like the last 2 things I really wanted to talk with you about, which is, I've read a lot of your interviews, and you talk so passionately, like you just did, about the importance of like strong female characters and the way that the writing for women's characters have really evolved over the years. And, that's one of the things I like about XMen 97 and XMen in general is these are women that are allowed to be villains and heroes and lovers and sisters and mothers, and there's nothing holding them back. And they can have all of that at the same time if they want to, which I think is like such an important part of the storytelling for female characters. And, it hasn't always been that way. And I'm curious for you, like, what has it been like getting to see the evolution of how female characters are being written in entertainment?
Being part of that process has been incredibly gratifying, because the one thing I hate is being put in a box, whether it's because of my gender, my career, how I appear, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that is one of my most favorite things about my entire career. I feel like my career has really just been an excuse to kick down barriers. And that's what I love doing. That's just what I love doing. And every time I see more content that's like this, I'm like, yes, about damn time.
Has there been like a specific moment in your career where you saw something that just like completely changed that moment for you? Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like something that's happened within like the process of a project that like you got more for the role from what was like originally on the paper. Like there was that notice that like this character deserves so much more, and like something kind of evolved in the process. I think I described that well.
Yeah.
I lost myself in the process there.
One thing about that is that as performers, we don't often get the chance to influence character arcs in the writing, because our job is to serve what was created. What has happened is the opportunity to arrive into a project and really understand, like, whoa, oh my God, this is breaking down doors. I mean, I will never forget. I have 2 experiences. Both of them actually are around a game called Mass Effect. Mm-hmm. In Mass Effect, is a trilogy, and the first 2 parts of the trilogy, they released marketing with just male Shep on the box. And in the third one, they had a reversible cover, and you could put Femme Shep facing out. And I'll never forget it. We were at GameStop. It was like midnight. I don't really do midnight, and I don't go out and shop a ton. I'm always outside if I have free time. And Casey Hudson, who is running the team, is a very humble, quiet person, very powerful, very effective, but he does not seek the spotlight. Somebody comes to my table to have me sign it, and they drop the box on the table with the cover turned so that FemShep is out, and I gasped. And I grabbed that box, and I climbed up on top of my chair, and I held it over my head like John Cusack in whatever that movie was, you know, with the
boombox.
Yeah. I held it over my head and I yelled at the top of my lungs, Casey Hudson, thank you. Thank you to this whole team. And I was just crying. It was amazing. And then when they did the remaster, every trailer had always featured, you know, Bro Shep. And I adore Mark, so I call him, you know, Mark Mayer, who plays a male shepherd, and I call him Bro Shep because he's my space bro. You know, and that's the price of breaking down barriers. You don't get the acknowledgement. You're not there for that. You're there to get stuff done. So when they released Mass Effect Legendary Edition, the trailer was FemShep. And I'm just watching the trailer and all of a sudden it hit me like a ton of bricks. And here I go again, I'm like, waterworks. I just started bawling and something moved me to grab my phone and record this moment. And I just sent it out to all the fans like, you guys, this is incredible. This is incredible. I was just a mess. And somebody commented and said, this is what representation looks like. And I was like, that's it. Yes. This is what it feels like to be seen. And I was instantly humbled because I appear white. I'm not entirely white, but I present as white and I present as middle class. That is not how I started life at all. But so I have that unconscious privilege. And I instantly thought of all the people who don't and how they feel every day being unrepresented. And I was just like, oh my God, this is a hill we got to keep going. This is crazy.
I mean, that's exactly where I was getting with my terribly laid out question there. Like, those are the moments that I'd love to hear about, like the moment you realize there's an impact in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then to close things out, you know, as an actor myself and somebody who is a proud member of the Screen Actors Guild, I love what you're doing with the SkillHub. And I would love to know, like, how did that come to be? Like, what was the thought for that brainchild?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. SkillShub.life. It is, that happened. SkillShub.life happened because, look, I've been doing this for decades, but I still hit places where I'm sick of my own point of view or I'm just at an impasse with an audition, and I just wanted 10 minutes with someone I trust. I don't need an hour of coaching. I don't have time to take a class. I'm real too busy. And I said to my sister, God, I wish I've got this idea in my head for like a calendar system, and I know all these amazing directors and voice directors and actors who I know would give their time. They're just busy, so you should pay them for their time, like by the minute. And she's like, you know what? You need to meet my friend Bill. So it's me and Karen and Bill. And my sister Karen is Carrre, and is how she spells it. So we just sat down and we started tinkering away at it. And Bill came back with this incredible site, and he did, I should say, over 50 at least hour-long beta tests. And in that process, I think it was Anjali Bhamani who said, you know, I got these two guys who want to learn how to do this. And I was like, oh, yeah, we can meet with them too. Now we have like classes, and I've written out personally like almost a dozen step-by-step career assembly guides that they're there on the site for anybody. We have almost 90 coaches now, and they do this by the minute. And we got up to like 70 different classes that are specifically for people people have asked for this stuff. So we put it together. It's wild. And I'm in there all the time like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's do that. You know, it's really fun.
I love that so much. I think that's a great resource for anyone, whether you're getting started or already established. I mean, it's great to
come in. It's so much fun. We have such a great community. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. This was really great. I really enjoyed getting to chat with you about all these things.
You too. And I look forward to seeing you again sometime. This was so great.